From its inception in June of 1935, J. Edgar Hoover used the Federal Bureau of Investigation for his own benefit, corrupting the organization with politicalization and weaponization against his political opponents to gain massive control. And not only has the government known about it, they've been complicit and, even worse, utilized the corruption for their own purposes and power. Rosie the Riveter here, dropping more truth bombs to destroy fake news and propaganda. Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell to get new videos when they are uploaded. Now, let's get into today's riveting topic. Many think if the FBI is going after you, then you have done something to deserve it. However, the FBI is working exactly as J. Edgar Hoover, its organizer and first director, utilized it, using the agency to target political opponents and grab power to control the people. Exactly 100 years ago, President Calvin Coolidge appointed a very young J. Edgar Hoover as the 5th director of the Bureau of Investigation. Immediately upon taking office, Hoover fired all female employees and instilled rules forbidding any future female hires. In 1935, Hoover reconstructed the organization, renaming it the Federal Bureau of Investigation, or FBI, and becoming its first director. He was laser focused on criminal investigation, developing such tools as a centralized fingerprint data file, coordinating a collection of mugshots of known criminals across the country, and introduced forensic science and specialized laboratories to process evidence. In addition, he created a national blacklist, also known as the FBI Index, as well as the 10 most wanted list for national known criminals. It soon became evident that as much as Hoover loved crime fighting, he loved power more. He was extremely tough, not only on criminals, but he was known to use his position and power to punish agents he didn't like, forcing them out by career-ending assignments or outright firing them. Melvin Purvis was one of the most successful FBI agents in its history, running the investigations that led to the captures of John Dillinger, Pretty Boy Floyd, Babyface Nelson, and Bonnie and Clyde. These arrests jettisoned him to the position of the second most famous person in history at that time, just behind President Franklin Roosevelt, a title which did not sit well with Hoover at all. As a result, Hoover set him up for failure. Purvis was only assigned to the most difficult and impossible cases, placing him under constant scrutiny, causing him to resign from the FBI in 1935 at just 32 years old. Not only did Purvis's FBI career end, Hoover blacklisted him, ending his chances of obtaining any job in law enforcement, just for being more famous than Hoover. Drunk with power, Hoover even refused to allow the Supreme Court to stand in his way. On June 17, 1957, the SCOTUS handed down 4 rulings protecting free speech and the rights of political dissenters. Seeing it as a win for communists, Hoover coined the day Red Monday, furious the decisions prevented him from targeting people simply due to their political affiliation. Hoover's counterintelligence program, or COINTELPRO, which he designed the previous year to target possible communists, was already underway. Despite the rulings, Hoover continued to go after anyone he believed was associated with or infiltrated by the Communist Party, a standard which allowed him to target both the KKK and the black community as communists. Under this umbrella, Hoover added to his target list civil rights organizations like Black Panther Party, as well as Martin Luther King Jr., who the FBI deemed the most dangerous and effective Negro leader in the country. Hoover used the blanket of rooting out communism as the springboard to implement multiple invasive and unconstitutional actions. Following World War II, Hoover weaponized his agency with such tools as illegal surveillance and wiretapping infiltration, psyops, planting forged documents, and spreading false rumors about key people in the targeted organizations as well as celebrities. Credible evidence also exists that Hoover actually authorized the inciting of violence and the arranging of murders. This continued until a group of anti-war demonstrators chose to use the FBI's tactics against them. In 1971, they broke into an FBI office just outside of Philadelphia, confiscated multiple documents, which they then mailed to Washington Post reporter Betty Metzger, who in turn published them. The documents revealed the FBI not only opened files on anyone just simply objecting to war, they were encouraging agents to infiltrate schools and churches in the black community, using secret informants, turning people against each other, and instructed agents to enhance paranoia. In response, Congress launched an investigation under the leadership of Senator Frank Church. The 1975 findings of the Church Committee exposed the FBI's illegal and unconstitutional activity, with instructions for the agency to reorganize their practices. However, it is painfully obvious their activities did not stop as they continue today to target political dissenters, including Tea Partiers, January 6th attendees, Christians, pro-lifers, patriots, and MAGA, including those within their own agency. Hoover's communist label has become today's domestic terrorist accusation, while groups like Antifa, BLM, and other actual communist and fascist organizations freely terrorize our communities, exempted from FBI scrutiny. In regards to the Black Panther Party, the Church Committee report stated, although the claimed purpose of the Bureau's COINTELPRO tactics was to prevent violence, some of the FBI's tactics against the BPP were clearly intended to foster violence, and many others could reasonably have been expected to cause violence. Still thinking the accusations leveled against the FBI about their informants infiltrating the Trump supporters at the Capitol on January 6th and instigating the violence that occurred are really just far-fetched right-wing conspiracy theories? Are you starting to question the legitimacy of the investigations, charges, and indictments against those in Washington on January 6th yet? Is it beginning to make sense why so many are calling January 6th a Fedsurrection? But Hoover was not just collecting information to prosecute and persecute political opponents. A huge portion of the information Hoover gathered consisted of inappropriate sexual photos and activities, such as premarital, extramarital, and interracial relations. Hoover reportedly had possibly the largest collection of pornography and nude photos, including of high-profile individuals, which he not only used for his own personal gratification, but for blackmail. These photos, though not necessarily showing any illegal activity, were highly embarrassing to the subjects and could be used to manipulate and control those involved. He kept a massive amount of secret files on everyone, including celebrities and politicians, and made sure they were kept secret by storing them in his office under lock and key. In his 2011 book, The Secrets of the FBI, biographer Ronald Kessler records Hoover's number 3 official, William Sullivan, as stating, the moment Hoover would get something on a senator, he'd send one of the errand boys up and advise the senator that we're in the course of an investigation and we by chance happen to come up with this data on your daughter. But we wanted you to know this. We realized you'd want to know it. Well, Jesus, what does that tell the senator? From that time on, the senator's right in his pocket. Crime Records Division's Lawrence J. Helm confirmed Hoover's tactics. He would send someone over on a very confidential basis. As an example, if the Metropolitan Police in Washington had picked up evidence of homosexuality, he would have him say, This activity is known by the Metropolitan Police Department and some of our informants, and it is in your best interest to know this. But nobody has ever claimed to have been blackmailed. You can deduce what you want from that. There was even an FBI liaison with Congress, Cartha Deloche, who had no problem using his position to manipulate congressmen and their votes, especially when it came to funding for the FBI itself. Have you ever wondered why you keep voting for people who seem solid, only to have them start voting against their stated principles as soon as they get to Washington? Do you think this blackmail stopped with Hoover? Despite being loved by the country as a powerful lawman, Hoover stayed away from prosecuting the real criminals, the mob, and those who played footsie with them, which included politicians. That is, unless it was politically expedient for him and or the department to do so. But why would a man who is so focused on prosecuting criminals totally ignore the worst criminals in the country? Well, because blackmail goes both ways. Hoover shared his bachelor pad with longtime aide and FBI Associate Director Clyde Tolson, who was not only Hoover's primary heir to his estate upon his death, he was also Hoover's alleged lover. Several biographers corroborated and confirmed the multiple stories of Hoover's homosexuality and cross-dressing fetish, as well as his attendance at parties promoting such activities, some which included male prostitutes. One witness was Clint Murchison Sr., owner of Del Carte Hotel in California, where Hoover vacationed every summer and where some of these questionable parties took place. Murchison had a special, secluded bungalow which Hoover and Tolson always stayed, free of charge. Many have confirmed that mobster Frank Costello and others secured compromising photos of Hoover and Tolson, as well as cross-dressing photos of Hoover, evidence of relationships with pedophiles, sexual encounters with boys, and had proof of his gambling problem. Mobsters used this information to keep Hoover in check and out of their affairs. Their connections with politicians also played into Hoover turning a blind eye. Roosevelt illegally gave Hoover the authority to bug and wiretap whoever he wanted without warrants, violating our Fourth Amendment rights, among others, all under the guise of national security and stopping communism. Congress unconstitutionally violated all those rights again with the Patriot Act, which was written, according to Joe Biden, by him long before September 11, 2001, and was passed just weeks after the national tragedy to supposedly combat domestic terrorism. Yet starting under Barack Obama, that label was used to brand conservatives, Christians, parents who pushed back against the LGBTQ plus agenda, and MAGA. Not the real domestic terrorists such as Antifa and BLM. No American is safe from their tentacles, as their constant attacks on President Trump, his supporters, and anyone who exposes their illegality has proven beyond a shadow of a doubt. Hoover's FBI is the FBI, from then till now. But not everyone kowtowed to Hoover's tyranny. President Harry S. Truman denied Hoover his request to make the FBI a global intelligence service, in essence merging with the CIA, instead wanting him to focus on domestic law enforcement. In a handwritten note by Harry S. Truman, dated May 12, 1945, Truman stated, "We want no Gestapo or secret police. FBI is tending in that direction. They are dabbling in sex life scandals and plain blackmail when they should be catching criminals. They also have a habit of sneering at local law enforcement officers." Truman also wrote, J. Edgar Hoover would give his right eye to take over, and all congressmen and senators are afraid of him. Hoover didn't just abuse everyday citizens. He grossly exploited his position with his own agents, having them do housework, gardening, building structures and make improvements around the house, as well as place bets for him at the track. They were his own personal servants. Hoover thoroughly enjoyed the power he obtained with his secret files, but he was not about to let what he did get out or let anyone else have access to it. He had instructed his longtime personal secretary, Helen Gandy, to destroy his files upon his death, which she dutifully did after he was found lifeless the morning of May 2nd, 1972. All the files were gone by the time the Justice Department arrived at his office to obtain them. Hoover served for 48 years under 8 presidents. Tulson took over the FBI upon Hoover's death, yet President Richard Nixon immediately appointed Louis Patrick Gray as acting director, and Tulson resigned. Nixon wanted to clean up the FBI. Unfortunately, they didn't let him. William Mark Felt Sr. became associate director, taking Tulson's old position. Most know Felt as the infamous Deep Throat from the Watergate scandal, which ended Nixon's presidency. Remember what I said earlier about FBI's practice of spreading false information? With Nixon gone, the FBI continued on as usual, even after the Church Committee, with their tactics becoming more invasive, more aggressive, and more despicable. The FBI needed to rebuild Hoover's secret files if they wanted to continue their quest for ultimate power and control. Ladies and gentlemen, may I introduce you to Jeffrey Epstein and P.Diddy Combs. Epstein was first brought into public light in the mid-2000s when he was charged with sexual assault against an underage victim. At that time, a plea deal was reached and Epstein was convicted of minor prostitution charges, serving a cushy 1.5-year sentence. According to News Nation, under a secret agreement, the U.S. Attorney's Office agreed not to prosecute Epstein for federal crimes. Epstein served most of his sentence in a work-release program that allowed him to leave the jail during the day to go to his office and return to his cell at night. How did Epstein get such a deal? According to court documents, Epstein's secret arrangement involved him becoming an informant for the FBI, which may explain why it took victims another decade to get the federal government to open another investigation, leading to his sex trafficking conviction and imprisonment in 2019. Epstein's story resurfaced again when his one-time girlfriend and associate, Ghislaine Maxwell, was arrested, tried, and convicted of sex trafficking in 2021. Despite both of their convictions, the federal government has yet to bring a single charge against anyone Epstein and Maxwell trafficked to. The media continues to bury this whole story, especially concealing the identity of those visiting Epstein's private Little St. James Island. The only person they ever try to tie to Epstein is Trump. But what the media purposely doesn't tell you is not only did Trump ban Epstein from Mar-a-Lago after he tried to assault an employee's daughter, Trump was the only person who gave evidence against Epstein in the first sexual assault investigation. The FBI has Epstein's client list and an abundance of evidence from his island, as well as his New York apartment. Why haven't we seen the hundreds of incriminating videos and photos? Apparently, Elon Musk and Tucker Carlson wonder this too.
I'd like to see a matchup of those, call it the top 100 puppet masters on the Epstein client list.
Do you think there's some overlap?
Strong overlap. Strong overlap.
When are we going to see that list, do you think?
I don't know. It's mind-blowing that they've not tried to prosecute even one. Not even the worst offender on the Epstein client list. They've not even tried to prosecute even one. That's insane.
Well, because they have a lot of diabetic grandmothers who were outside the Capitol on January 6th. They're kind of occupied.
Yeah, they've put like whatever 500 or 600 January 6th protesters in prison, and not one person on the Epstein client list.
Will that ever come out, do you think?
You know, I think part of why Kamala is getting so much support is that if Trump wins, that Epstein client list is going to become public.
Yes.
And some of those billionaires behind Kamala are terrified of that outcome.
Yeah. Do you think Reid Hoffman's uncomfortable?
Yes.
Yeah.
And Gates.
And Gates.
Yeah.
And I only ask that because you just look at them and you're like, that's a nervous person right there. I don't know. I mean, I assume you know them. Yeah.
Yes.
The Reid Hoffman Elon referenced is the billionaire who bankrolled E. Jean Carroll's rape allegations against Trump, but I'm sure that's just a coincidence, right? As we have information coming out about P.Diddy, accusations and evidence are again being brought to light that law enforcement knew and purposely ignored what was happening.
Diddy's former bodyguard tonight alleging that Diddy was working for the FBI as a confidential informant.
People don't realize this, brother. First and foremost, Puff has been dodging the legal system for years. Puff being, and this is documented, Puff being a CI for an FBI agent. They was taking some papers up to the FBI, stuff like when they was here in New York. They was taking paperwork up there and stuff like that. Don't know what it was, but later on found out that he was a CI.
Now, Primetime can't confirm this, but if Diddy was an FBI informant, it explains why he was giving a pass to wreak havoc, according to his producer's lawsuit. What Diddy wanted, Diddy got.
Savage! I'm a savage! Oh! I'm a savage! Whatever I want, I'm going to get! Whatever I want, I have to get!
All while he was cozying up to Hollywood figures like Harvey Weinstein and becoming a major voice in the Democratic Party with his vote or die campaigns for Kerry, Barack, Hillary, Biden, getting souls to the polls. For 2 decades, Diddy thought he was untouchable. But now he's had his house raided, tapes confiscated, and the feds are zeroing in on his flight records. Diddy's world's crumbling.
Where are Epstein's tapes and photos? What evidence did they collect from P. Diddy? Who's being protected, or more interestingly, who is still being blackmailed? Why can't we know who they are, and why is the FBI and the government involved with and covering up for pedophiles? Is it because the people involved are way too powerful? Or is it because the FBI wants to continue to have a means of blackmail against those involved? J. Edgar Hoover ran the organization on corruption, cover-ups, and blackmail, and those in charge learned well from him. Knowing what we know now, can we continue to believe the FBI's assessment that Hillary Clinton's Pizzagate sex trafficking scandal in 2016 was just a right-wing conspiracy? Interestingly enough, Hillary just brought it up in an interview as all the news drops about P. Diddy.
I mean, look, the crazy story about me running a child trafficking operation out of a basement of a pizzeria, don't laugh. Don't laugh. It was a huge story. And it got one young man in North Carolina to get in his car with his, assault rifle and drive up to liberate these non-existent children and shoot up a pizzeria in Washington, D.C.
I think she's getting a little nervous that people will revisit the story concerning her husband was a frequent visitor of Epstein Island, trying to discredit it before people connect all the dots. It makes you wonder why Democrats are so sympathetic to pedophiles while destroying Christian patriots just for trying to make America great again. But the corruption is not limited to blackmail. The FBI bigwigs are heavily involved in election interference as well. In 2016, FBI Director James Comey protected Hillary Clinton, admitting she committed a laundry list of crimes, but excused them all as mistakes and oversights. And, well, no reasonable prosecutor would file charges. The FBI had Hunter Biden's laptop in 2019, and they knew it was 100% authentic. Yet they supported the 51 intel agents who still signed a document claiming it was Russian disinformation, though they knew that was a total lie. Do you know they still have Seth Rich's laptop too? As we speak, the FBI is targeting Trump supporters even harder as domestic terrorists, while Venezuelan gangs overtake apartment complexes and are ignored by the press and federal law enforcement. Marcus Allen's testimony verifies the upper echelon in the FBI continue with Hoover's tactics to this day, punishing good agents who dare to expose the FBI's corrupt practices.
And everybody in the minority party, they're fearing what Donald Trump would do in the next administration while they sit here and they look at the guy who's been persecuted by the FBI. And everybody in the room understands it. Mr. Allen, do you have comments you wish to make? I'll give you about a minute, minute and a half, and then I want to turn the rest of my time to Mr. Jordan.
Yes, sir. I would just say that I consider the hearing today my last act of service as a public servant for the United States of America. And I'll give you my professional opinion. I was an intel professional for our country for many years, and I would give recommendations, and I'd also look at indications and warnings. So I would offer this to the American people as my warning to them. Since this is a warning to the American people, I say, I personally have no confidence that the FBI will rein in its own conduct. I've been persecuted along with Garrett, Steve and Kyle, and countless other whistleblowers. It is my opinion that the Bureau used reprisal and fear to control the workforce. It has been a seemingly effective tactic. I personally believe that there are no current effective checks and balances against them conducting lawless action with any type of correction in a legitimate time frame. I welcome the work of the IG, but I think any type of lawless action, there's no legitimate time frame to rein them back in. Their ability to overclassify information can allow them to stonewall forever. My other recommendations are in the natural order. First, vote. The second is the Second Amendment. Arm yourself and know how to defend yourself. And read the gospel of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, and live it every day. And that's all I have to say. Thank you for the time.
You know, Mr. Allen, the fact that there are servants like you who have been born up under persecution that a lot of political leaders in this country do not care about is the thing that heartens the American people, and I'm confident the American people will resolve the situation.
As Chuck Schumer admitted,
you take on the intelligence community, they have 6 ways from Sunday at getting back at you.
You know, I'm beginning to think Trump knew something we didn't when he began calling out the intelligence agencies in 2015. Let me be clear. I'm not condemning all FBI agents, as the vast majority are good, hard-working people, especially those outside of Washington, D.C. However, many in the leadership positions, as well as some in the ranks who benefit from the weaponization, are as corrupt as the day is long. That being said, we, the American people, deserve answers and accountability from all parties involved. I'm Rosie the Riveter, and that's my 2 cents. But what do you think? Leave your comments down below. If you enjoy my content, please consider supporting my work on Patreon. You can find all my videos and my blog, Liberating Letters, at thefactspaper.com. You can also start your own research on the Facts Paper by exploring the thousands of links to articles I have, including those noted in my videos, sharing the truth fake news propagandists won't. Investigate and discover the truth for yourself.